Hello and welcome to episode 367 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now today's episode is, for me personally, the biggest episode I've ever done in 7 years of launching Mark and Me. I've been pinching myself since this interview took place. When I started Mark and Me, I made a list and I made this very public on all the socials that there was 20 dream guests that I wanted on Mark and Me. I never added the name of this guy because it seems so far from reality that I could ever get him on the podcast. But today, I'm absolutely thrilled to announce I'm joined by both Chino Moreno and the incredible Shaun Lopez from the awesome band Crosses. Anyone that's ever met me will know that Deftones are my favourite band. They have been, for me, one of the most influential bands of all time. Today, I would say that someone like Crosses are the Depeche Mode of our generation. Chino, for me, is the most vocal diverse singer I've ever heard. Everything he does is within its own genre. Everything he touches is fresh and new. I've been listening to Shaun and Chino's music for over 20 years, and every time I hear something that they've done, it always feels like the first time for me of ever hearing anything they've done. There's just nobody like them. Chino's voice for me is a fucking dream. It always has been. And their new album, Good Night, God Bless, I Love You, Delete, is by far the best album of last year. They create this soundscape that, honestly, I lose myself in. I love the storytelling in their music. It's so beautiful, at times it's so heavy, and everything that I could want from a band. They're instantly one of my favourites, and I got to see them in Manchester on their most recent UK tour. And thanks to one of my best friends in the entire world, Emma from Public City, wow, she made this interview happen. This band do not do much press, they do not do much interviews, and I truly never thought this would happen. Chino for me is at the top of his game. The production that Shaun Lopez is doing right now, you have to give it your attention. There is nothing else like it. I can't stop listening to Crosses. Their music for me is the best out there right now, and it's just in a league of its own. The show was absolutely spectacular. I've never seen or heard such a great vocal performance from Chino as I did that night, and I followed this man for over 20 years. Crosses for me has the ability to make every song familiar even on its first listen, while being entirely new, and I absolutely love that about this band. So, during my time in Manchester, I was lucky enough to join the band on their tour bus, sit down and record this interview for you guys at home. I am still, even though I'm about to hit publish for you guys to listen, still in this dream and kind of lost, thinking, did this really happen? But it did, and it's here for you now. So what I want to do is to get straight to it. So here's me and Chino and Shaun talking all things Crosses. Sometimes I feel like a rose been changed. Sometimes I feel like a ghost. So Shaun and Chino, welcome to the Mark and Me podcast.
Right on.
Hello.
I'm very well, and I just want to say before we start how much I appreciate you coming on. Emma will know this, but when I started Mark and Me 7 years ago, I had a list of names I wanted to get on the podcast, and sometimes you will dream and put stuff like John Carpenter and all this, but Crosses were my number one. That was my, if I can get these guys on this podcast, I might as well retire. So that's,
nice.
Emma will back me up on that.
It's amazing that we've been around for that long.
Yeah, I know.
I thought you were going to say, something else. I was like, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, I forget.
Yeah, so I just want to say before we start that I am so grateful that you've actually took the time out and allowed me to do this interview, because it's like now a big tick. So it could be the end of the podcast after today.
Yeah, let's go out with a bang.
What I do with all guests that come on the podcast is I like to take it right back to the very start. So I love to know when you're a kid, maybe when you're growing up, someone in your family may have gave you an album, or you got pocket money from a paper round, but you bought an album that maybe changed your life. the one that for me, I bought a CD. I remember smelling the inlay and reading all the lyrics. And that was the moment I was like, I absolutely just want to be involved in music forever. And I wondered if you could both tell me what that album was for you.
I mean, there's a couple for different reasons, but one that just popped in my mind, and I believe I've told the story before, but it was kind of what you said as far as like, getting it and opening it up and looking at it. But the only deal with this one was it was actually, so the record was The Cure's Pornography, and it was on cassette.
Wow.
And I'm not sure if it was a bootleg or what, but I know for a fact it did not have the lyrics inside of it.
Okay.
So because I didn't have the lyrics in it, I was so like intrigued by the music, obviously, but the words as well. So I took a notebook and I listened to every song multiple times, and I figured out the lyrics and I wrote them down.
That's dedication.
Yeah, just like figured out, and I probably got a lot of them wrong, but even, still it was like, just they were very unorthodox. The words, I mean, especially that record, it's a pretty dark album. But the words themselves, there's so much imagery in there, and just that was really, really inspiring for me to want to write. Now, I didn't know I was going to obviously be in a band or sing. I mean, I actually started in a band shortly after that, but not knowing. I mean, that's not why I did it. I was just doing it because I was just like really intrigued by it. But yeah, I believe that when I look back, I believe that had a big deal of sort of how I still write when I'm writing lyrics and things like that, where there are a lot of imagery in them, aside from I'm not really a storyteller that much, and I don't sing about things really directly. A lot of it's like indirectly, and mostly by just putting words together and phrases, and like I said, trying to paint sort of a picture of whatever mood the music is conveying.
That's a real beautiful way of doing it. I mean, I've done over 350 episodes, but no one's actually used it as their lyrics or their thoughts as a process of making the bigger picture, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that it's all stemmed from you literally sitting there with a pen and a paper, probably pushing play on the tape player, pausing and trying to get every lyric right.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking you're sitting here now thinking, what was it? Like Shaun's going, I can't remember, but is yours as good as that?
It's maybe not as well. It's cool, but it's a different kind of cool. I guess it would be. I remember it was Led Zeppelin 2.
Wow.
And I had an older brother and sister, and I just remember the first time I heard it. I think it was when I first heard "Whole Lot of Love," and the breakdown and "Whole Lot of Love," and I just remember it was I was probably 6 or something, and I just remember it sounded scary. Because it's got all those like weird theremin, like echoey
so
things
much
in
is
it.
going on in that.
And I just remember I was like, wow, this sounds like, and almost just like reminded me of like horror movies. Because I was one of those kids where my parents let me watch like horror movies, and so I was watching like The Shining and Halloween and stuff like that when I was a kid. But that really, like, I loved that. I mean, I still do, but that was, I just think I liked it because I was like, what is this weird section here, because it was kind of, of all the other music that I've heard, it was kind of like out of left field there a little bit.
That's amazing. I remember when my parents would go out, my dad's a huge horror fan, and you'd have those VHSs that you'd be able to, with a thick marker pen, write the title on. And there was one that they were like, you're just not allowed to watch it. Like, you can watch Aliens, you can watch Alien 3, you can watch John Carpenter's The Thing. But there was one that they were like, you're never allowed to watch this, which made me then think, the moment you're going out and watching it, and it was Silence of the Lambs, and it fucked me up because I was about 8. And there's no way to kind of get those images out of your head at that age. And then I watched Poltergeist, which now looks laughable with the practical effects, and I'm sitting there thinking, it looks like cartoony. Yeah.
Well, Silence of the Lambs is also a lot more psychologically like terrifying, right? So like, and it's also something that's it's more real, like based in reality, where something like that could happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So those things are always a little scarier than just like gory.
Yeah, like
typical.
Ghostbusters I loved, and I always remember like the dogs with the red eyes always stuck with me, but I was like, that's not going to happen.
Yes.
My parents might move house and suddenly put it on a funeral parlor, and then it might happen. But there's always a chance that there's a Hannibal Lecter person around. The fear is that he will just eat you, and that is pretty scary, isn't it? A kid, even now. What I always am interested in as well is music. Obviously had a huge impact in my life, but when I was growing up, my parents dropped me off. I think I was about 13, and it was meet us back here. You're allowed to go to your first gig, but you got to come back here. There wasn't, phones and WhatsApp and all this sort of stuff. And I walked into Wolverhampton, and I saw Green Day on their Dookie tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't believe the whole way through this show that there was only 3 people on stage. I couldn't, I know they've got more instruments now and a second guitarist and stuff, but it blew my mind. And the moment I came home, I was like, I want a little Fender Strat. I want to stand in the mirror and I want to be Billy Joe and stuff. Do you remember that first gig that you maybe went to as a young age that maybe was the reason you then said, I want to do this for the rest of my life? Like, where the hairs stick up on your neck and your ribs shake from the bass and you're just absorbed. Can you remember that first one, even if it's embarrassing?
Yeah, I mean, I remember it distinctly. It's funny because I told this story the other day too, and someone actually found a picture of me in the crowd.
No way.
In the front row. But I saw Depeche Mode on the Violator tour, and that exact thing that you said. I worked my way to the front. It was general admission, so I was able to just sort of like make my way through the crowd and sort of get to the barricade. And when they started, I mean, they all came out, but obviously Dave just emitted this presence that he still does really when he performs. But I just remember watching it, just going like, wow, like I want to do that. Obviously didn't have any idea of that I would or it was possible, but just like that, they just threw that idea in my head of just like, wow, that looks like the funnest thing in the world to go out there and express yourself, in front of millions of screaming people, or thousands, I should say. But at that time, but yeah, it was so funny because I told this story and someone went to, because it was in Sacramento at the Calixville Amphitheater, and someone went through, found a recording of that show. And there's a part where Nights of Reb was actually the opening band, so they're playing, and then it pans out into the crowd, and then someone took a still shot of me. I don't know who did it, but another friend sent me a still of it. Is this you? And I looked, and I was like, that is me. And I'm 15 years old, and it's pretty insane. I'll try to find it on my phone. I think.
Yeah, I need to see that before we wrap up today. But that's insane that someone's actually been able to find that.
Yeah.
Come on, Shaun. What's your first one?
I mean, that really made me, maybe you want to go, I want to try to, I mean, I was already playing music, but it made me I want to actually try and do this for real, for try and be a touring band and everything. And it was Jane's Addiction.
Wow.
I remember the show was Jane's Addiction, the Pixies, and Primus. It was all in one show. It was in San Jose. And I just remember, because I was at the time I was a huge Jane's Addiction fan, so just seeing that show was just it blew me away, but it just made me want to just write music,
What a wild lineup as well, Primus at such a young age. I wouldn't be able to kind of digest it. I think I needed all the bands like Rush and all these bands to come into my life to then appreciate what Primus is, and I kind of sit there thinking I wouldn't be able to kind of understand what the hell was going on in front of me.
Well, no, I mean, at the time I was into Primus as well. The only band that I just wasn't familiar with was the Pixies.
Yeah,
and I think they were I believe they were main support, and Primus opened. And I'd already seen, I think I'd seen Primus maybe before that or something, but yeah, it was. I mean, it's a wild lineup when you think about it now.
So at this stage, you're both then deciding and dreaming, I suppose, I'd love to be like Depeche Mode, I'd love to be like Primus or Jane's Addiction. Did you have that feeling of actually it could become a reality? Because when I was a kid, my band back in the day wasn't that successful. We got some radio play and stuff and played with a few cool bands, but my parents were very, well, that's nice, son, but you need to get a real job, and this is a nice hobby, and we hope you something to fall back on. Or were they like, son, go out and fucking do this. If this is your dream, you just don't let anyone tell you any different.
Yeah, I don't think I ever expressed to them that it was actually a dream. I think it was more like I was a kid and I was trying a million different things.
Yeah.
So they definitely didn't discourage me. At the same time, I mean, they were supportive, but they weren't you know, like it was just like I said, another thing that I was doing. You know, I was
Yeah.
also skateboarded. Like that was my life too. So I guess somewhere in my brain, I was going to be a pro skater as well. You know what I mean? But and musically, like obviously when I first started, like I was a much better skateboarder than I was a singer. You know what I mean? So like I didn't, you know, I kind of became became the singer by default because everybody else can play instruments better than me. So I wanted to be in the band, and these were my friends. We all, you know, hung out together. So that they just, you know, said, well, you can be the singer. And I was like, I don't know how to sing. They said, you can, you know, figure it out. and I did. But
Just work it out.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, my parents, I mean, I remember when I told my dad, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go to band practice. I was like, can you give me a ride? He's like, band practice? I was like, yeah, I'm joining in a band with Stefan and, you know, and Abe, whatever. He's like, okay. And he gave me a ride. He like, you know, dropped me off and was ever like, good luck. You know what I mean? And, you know, that was literally the genesis of, you know, me making music was that day. My dad dropped me off, and I always look back and think like, you know, he could have not given me a ride that day, and I could have just told the guys, I couldn't find a ride. You know what I mean? And I'm probably not going to be able to figure this out anyway. So whatever.
And now you could be the next Tony Hawk. It could have been an alternative life, and you could have been the best skater in the world.
I doubt that. Whatever. 'Cause once fear kicks in, and when you're young, I think, you know, with skateboarding especially, it's like, you know, you kind of like. Well, I think actually just across the board, you're less scared to try things. You know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
So like, you know, I'm sure it applied to singing too, whatever. I didn't care if I was terrible, because who cares, right? It's just me and my friends, and like, you know, going in front of people was a little scary, obviously. But with skateboarding, I think as good as I got, I was good because I was daring and I would try stuff. Now these days, like, you know, like I think I was like probably in my 30s, and the last time I like really tried to go to a skate park, and I was there for like 5 minutes and I sprained my ankle, and that was probably the last time that I got on a skateboard with the intentions of trying to actually skateboard instead of, I mean, I still have skateboards and I'll like, you know, ride to the corner store, whatever. But like the whole part of like, you know, skateboarding for, you know, the you know, to do tricks or anything like that all ended when, like, you know, you get to a certain age and fear kicks in.
I was going to say, it's like your conscience is like suddenly changed. I don't know what happens, but you suddenly go, actually, I believe now I can see that if I try and kickflip over that little rock or a stone or something, I might break my neck. But as a kid, you're like, I'm going to kickflip over that. I don't give a shit. And you don't think about the actual breakage of your bones. You're just like, I'm going to do it. And I wish I could go back to that for some stuff now.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I think about the, you know, the stuff that I used to do on a skateboard, like, you know, we would ride up, you know, we would all drive up to this, like, remember there was like this, it was like a church, and it had these handrails. And I remember when I like first like ollied and like grinded like down a handrail, it was the most amazing feeling. But man, I would not do that now. Like, and I think that's just something about when you're like, you know, 15, 16, you know, you're just different. And I think it's about, I think it's that way with music too. You know, I think you're way more, you don't care about anyone judging you when you're like 16 making music, you know.
When you obviously had the foundations to build Far and for Deftones, it must be quite hard to be in that mindset now because you're so far away from that age. But did you ever have, in your wildest dreams, these visions that you'd be playing arenas and that you'd be one of the most influential bands out there? Most of the bands I interview now, not hardly 2 or 3 episodes go past that people don't mention Far, Deftones, Refused as the bands that got them into it. And I wondered, did you ever, even when you picked up your guitar or you sang into a mic or you played a drum or whatever you did to start, did you ever believe that it could ever be an actual thing that you could achieve, or was it just a...
I don't think I did it. It's not like I didn't believe it.
No.
But I honestly didn't like have those huge aspirations. I'm speaking for myself now. I'm not sure. Sean's answer might be different. But I mean, at the time, there were like these small little accolades that we'd make, you know, so we had like a little club in town. And when we were able to like, you know, pack that club, I felt like, oh, we made it, right? Actually, you know, Far pretty much started around the same time Deftones did, maybe a few months after or whatever, but we were started around the same time. So that was also a thing, like, you know, we were obviously friends, but we also really like pushed each other, you know, right? Far did this. Oh, they sold out the Cattle Club. All right, well, we got to do it. Or Far's, they just released this EP. Oh, shit, we got to go in and we got to get bit. It was like definitely friendly competition wise, but I think we also drove each other, to try to, I don't want to say outdo each other, but just like level up.
Yeah,
it's like
it's a healthy competition, isn't it?
It definitely was, and we were all friends, like I said. Our friendship is still pretty much the same, but like we make fun of each other a lot as well. It's not like it's a fun, like it was a fun friendship as we were kids, because it's like we sort of nudge each other like in a friendly sort of like way, but it was like it was definitely competition there, but I loved it. It was like it kind of, I think, pushed us both to like try to achieve stuff, and then it was like another accolade, not little, but Deftones made it over to Europe.
Yeah.
What did we do? First, as soon as we brought Far with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Will Haven as well. But I mean, it was like so it was like, we wanted each other to succeed always. You know what I mean? And it was great to see when anything would happen for either one of our bands. You know what I mean? Anything positive, it was like awesome.
It's so positive because it could be the opposite. You could be like, fuck those guys, they got that gig before us, and there's an unhealthy balance where people are like rivals, and the whole mentality of like when I was growing up at college, battle of the bands, everyone's against everyone, like a football tournament. And I'm like, isn't it great that you guys were more about you push us, we'll push you, and we'll both get to the top?
And honestly, it could have been like that. Like if Far was like not a good band and they were like surpassing us by, I could see maybe me being a little angry, but Far was a great band, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of felt like, wow, this is like, and then it honestly started to be like, feel like it was something that was, even when they'd, do something great, I felt proud of it too, right? Because like we're both Sacramento bands. We started together. We were young and we grew up, around each other. We shared a practice place for years. And so it was almost like, when they would have success, we would have success and vice versa, I feel. Yeah.
Is your answer on the same page, or are we going to get a big shock revelation now that
Right,
you're like,
he's gonna
I'm
shatter
not the
me
same,
right now.
like
I hated you.
You pissed me off all the time.
No. I mean, I remember before Far had a singer, and we'd made this little demo, but it was an instrumental demo, and some other friends of mine were like, hey, I think you guys have maybe played with Elegy or something, but it was at the Colonial Theater, and I think I was going to see Elegy, and then these guys get on stage. I don't know if you guys were headlining or they were headlining, I remember at the time we were looking for a singer, and then this dude came out on stage, and I was like, damn, it was like that's the kind of singer like I want, like a dude that screams but can sing as well. And then I think like after that, like I think I ran into you like at a show or something, and I was like, oh hey, what's up, man? You probably don't remember, but it was but we were in the backstage area at the Cattle Club, I remember. And I came up to you, and I think I had a little cassette of our like instrumental thing, and I like handed it to him, and I was like, yo, you should check this out when you get a chance, And then I remember like seeing you later, and you were like, I remember seeing you like after that or something, and you were like, damn fool, like I would have sang on this, and then here we are now. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, I do remember that. And then I also remember when they first got, when they got signed to Maverick, and I remember us being in Matt Eric's, which is a very like rehearsal spot, which has like 3 rooms in it. And I remember seeing them. It was right after they got signed, and he was like, Chino was like, hey, you guys are next, man. I've been giving your demo out to people. You guys are definitely next. And then I don't know. It was probably like 6 months after that, I think we got signed. So it was pretty crazy.
His word.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, I know.
Take the credit,
right?
Yeah, it was all you.
And also take that commission too as well.
Yeah,
10% off all sales forever.
Yeah.
So with the story of you two obviously growing up, being in the same area, having a kind of the same lifespan with your bands, and being on the same page for a lot of the journey, you said then obviously you gave him a demo and hoped that he'd sing and all this, but when was the moment that it felt that you could give enough time to Crosses and make it an actual thing, so not just demoing and talking? When was it that we can make this not Deftones, we can make this not Far, we can actually do our thing and not worry about pissing everyone else off in each camp, that you could come together?
This was way later. I think this was after think Far had already been kind of broken up for a while. That was before you guys actually got back together to make that last album.
Yep.
But I had just moved to Los Angeles. Shaun had been living there for a while, and I actually, when I moved there, I moved into the same neighborhood, not knowing, but he lived like a block away from where I was staying, and our wives are friends, and so we'd hang out here and there, whatever. But Shaun has a studio at his house, then the same one that he still has, that we recorded everything in. But at the time, he was working on lots of stuff, lots of different stuff. But I'd always pop my head in there and just to see what he was doing, like, right. And one particular time, I stopped by. He was working with Chuck Doom, who was in the initial incarnation of the band, and they had made, I think maybe, I don't know how many tunes you guys had made, but it played me a couple things, and I wasn't even actually a time actually. I mean, I think I'd heard some of the stuff that you guys were working on. I liked it, but then you were having a barbecue at your house one time, and I remember I went over there, and Chuck was mentioned. He's like, "Hey, would you want to maybe get up on one of the songs or whatever, one of those songs that you heard?" And I was like, "Sure, whatever." And then, but didn't really. I mean, I've done a lot of collaborations. I've done a lot of I'll do a song here and there with somebody, whatever. But so I didn't look at it anything any more than that. Maybe just like adding guesting on a vocal or something like that, whatever. I think the idea was they were going to get different singers for different, whatever. And but I went in one time, I think, to start, and then we just kind of kept going. Like I did a song, and then we ended up doing another song. And I just remember at one point we had like 5 tunes, maybe 5 or 6 tunes, and then from there the idea was like, let's put it out and not tell anybody about, I think he had said, hey, I think, thinking about calling this project Crosses, whatever. Let's just put out some music and just like not solicit it at all. Like just, at that point, like it was like, there was still like a lot of the, like the Napster type of stuff was still, out, whatever, LimeWire and all that stuff. So you can kind of just like, you can kind of just sneak music out there, whatever. And, so yeah, we didn't like go looking for a label or really tell anybody about it. And I really embrace that idea. I still do love the way when when music comes out and it's not solicited and you discover it.
Yeah.
And the idea and that, remembering the way that it felt when I was a kid as well, like finding music on my own and not everybody telling me, oh, you got to hear this. I mean, kind of similar to like what we were talking about before we started the interview with like, me not seeing The Matrix or watching Game of Thrones. Or
He's
this,
just
that.
admitted it on
because,
the podcast now, everyone.
Because everybody's saying that like, oh, you have to see this. And I'm like, no, I don't want to see that.
No.
Just because everybody's telling me to see it, right? So when you find things on your own, it's kind of like, it makes it a lot more interesting. So
it does.
So we did. We tried that. We put out a EP kind of just under the radar. And, people slowly but surely kind of found it. And then we, but that was pretty much the start of, how it kind of came together.
Did it feel that you could do what you want with no restrictions, where with Far and with Deftones, you obviously have so many other people to consider, you have so many different personalities, you have so many people to kind of please because you need to make sure that everyone's on the same page? Did you feel like you were let off the leash and you could just do whatever you wanted and you and Chino together could just be free?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it never, I mean, it just feels like, it just feels like we can kind of do anything, I mean, not like it doesn't have to be, genre specific. It's just like, if it feels good, then it is good, it's not like we don't think, we never went in this being like, oh, well, Chino, this is like, this project is a certain thing, so you shouldn't scream at all. It should be all singing, and, so it's kind of like, I mean, most of it is singing, but there is some screaming on it as well, so I don't know. It just never felt like we were like tied down to anything certain, I don't know about you.
I mean, in general, expectations are horrible. I hate it. You know what I mean? It's like anytime that you can avoid people having expectations about something, it's like it's so much funner to create anything, right? I mean, if you're gonna make, I don't know if you are an artist in any way, but I know you said you play music, but say you were a painter or something, and you go around and you tell everybody that you're about to make this painting and it's going to be awesome, and and these are the colors palette you're using, and it's going to be a drawing of, or a painting of this or that. And then right away, everybody puts it in their mind what it is and what it's going to be. And so they're already almost let down before, you know what I mean?
Of course.
Before they even see it, you know what I mean? And so going in to make music like that is like, and regardless this day, I mean, I'm stuck with that. I mean, I've had success, in music. So people expect a certain thing from me already. Right. So I'm never going to be able to not whatever. But the less I talk about it, the better I feel like, you know what I mean? Like anytime we're going to put out any music, I mean, one of the first interviews, it's like the most generic question too, but always, so you're making your record, so what's it sound like? Like, I don't know what it fucking sounds like. You know what I mean? You want me to sit here and like hum it to you? Like, or like tell you what notes we're playing? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
of course.
Or it sounds like this band and this band and this band. It's like, it's the worst question ever. Or,
I'm so glad I didn't ask that to
all
start
right,
this interview.
Oh, it's heavy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Really heavy.
Or we're going back to our roots, or we're gonna like the most generic answer. It's like, I just hate that question. So it's like, I just try to say little about whatever, you know what I mean? Just like, the idea of just like, a lot of hip hop acts do it now, but they just like drop albums.
Yeah.
Whatever. I would love to be able to do that. Now, sadly, Emma knows. She'd be the one right here that's telling us like, we need to set this up, and everything needs to be set up, and
so many meetings and plans.
Yes,
but,
and then also it's like, when people put records out, it's like they put out like almost half the record, like like slowly one single, two, you know what I mean, five songs before.
I've heard the album now.
Yes,
by the time it's out, it's a nightmare.
And a lot of times it's like, so it's like, I wish you could just like put something out there.
Yeah.
And just let people just like listen to it and like it or not like it. You know what I mean? But I don't want to talk about it, because to me it's just like, it's just the annoying part about
I completely understand.
Putting yourself out there, basically.
I had Simon Neil from Biffy Clyro on the podcast for episode 300, and he obviously went off and did a side project called Empire State Bastard with Dave Lombardo from Slayer and stuff. And he was telling me pretty much the same. He was sick to death of everyone being like, so is it going to be Biffy Clyro, or is it going to be Slayer, or is it going to be Oceansides, because the guitarist was from that band? And he was just like, it just makes me want to never be associated with anything I've done, because I just want to go out there and play music that I'm comfortable with playing with no expectations. But I've tarnished myself because I've had 20 years of Biffy Clyro, so everyone automatically has that kind of, already I think people have that expectation. So he walks on stage, has no guitar, screams his lungs out, that is nothing like Biffy Clyro, and everyone's instantly like, you shouldn't be doing that because we only know you for this. So for you two to come out with Crosses that isn't Deftones, that isn't Far, is just such a fucking breath of fresh air, because I'm sure before you put out that EP, everyone's going to be like, it's going to be like Deftones but a bit more guitar-y, or it's going to be a bit more like Far but with your sort of melodies.
Well, what's funny is that, like, obviously we have, I mean, even if you don't have, I guess you'd need a Spotify account or something, but you can listen to all our, all the music we've made up to this point, basically, if you have a computer or a telephone. But at our shows, even tonight, we will see it. But obviously, this is our first time in the UK here. But the first time the crowd sees us, they are still a bit confused. And it's like, you kind of watch them sort of like from the time the first notes of the song, them sort of just like watching attentively, and like, you can, they're like, but you can see the confusion in them a little bit, and then also to kind of watch it unfold, and then watch them sort of loosen up, and then try to figure out like, how do we react to this? You know what I mean? Because there are parts of the music that are dancey, but should they dance? They don't know. You know what I mean? There's parts of the movie that are heavy. Should they mosh? They don't know. It's funny to see every night how that unfolds. You know what I mean? And it's a little different every night in every city, but it's generally been the same. For these, especially these debut shows, to see how to watch people's,
I might just stand on like near the balcony or like at the backside and just people watch instead of watching you guys. Just watch how everyone responds to every song that's played. But I was interested that I couldn't believe that it's 10 years since your debut album. Like that blows my mind. I'm like, oh my God. Now it was then 9 years till you did the follow-up, and I've said this on my other podcast, which is a movie podcast, and Em will back me up here. I thought your album last year was the album of the year. Like nothing touched it. It was fucking flawless. And I wondered if you both had any nerves or anxiety about putting out a follow-up when you've both left your name with crosses out there for nearly
Definitely.
10 years.
Yeah.
And I wondered, Shaun, if you were nervous of like, we need to fucking top this. We need to do something, because everyone's had 10 years with us now.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, I was definitely nervous, and I think that, you know, when we were mixing the album and I started getting the mixes back, I would play the mixes back, and then I'd play a song off the first album, and just to kind of keep it in check, and I feel like more bands and artists should do that to you know, just to, not that you're trying to cater to the audience too much, but I just think it's
good to reference yourself sometimes.
Yeah, it's just
Why not?
Keep yourself within your like expectation as well.
Yeah, and I always think too, no matter what, I usually say this to artists and bands that you know, if I'm producing them or whatever, and it might be, I'm like, you know what, it's like, it's very hard to be, you know, a band or an artist and, you know, top that first album or that second album that you did, the one that people just fell in love with.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is, you know, you might make a better album than the one that you made before, but to somebody, like to someone, that's the album that they fell in love, like they met their, you know, partner or whatever, and they got married, you know, and stuff like that. And I think you're never, so it's really hard to beat an album like that if it's like, oh, that song got me through this, you know, emotional breakup or whatever, you know. I think it's hard to beat those, you know, but I think it's definitely important to like check yourself and you know, just reference the stuff. But yeah, I was a little scared, but by the time it was like, once he sequenced the album, and he, you know, he sent me the sequence, he's like, all right, this is, and I listened through it, and I was really proud of it.
It's such an incredible journey. It's a great driving album as well at night, if you just put it on and let it just tell the story, because music is so digestible now, and people will listen to a song on Spotify and then hit shuffle or just remove it off their playlist. But I love an album in its entirety, and I think the thought that obviously went into the sequencing, it's a journey. I want to listen to an album from start to finish. I don't want it on shuffle. I want it to be told as a story. And because people, like you just said earlier today, Chino, that bands now release 5 or 6 singles and you've heard it, it's such a luxury to be able to just sit and not worry about skipping a track and just let it flow.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful album that I hear more and more things. If I've got some nice headphones at home, I'll hear more production and more synths and more little samples that I didn't hear when it's on my car and this. And it's one of those albums that I'll digest and it just grows within me, if that makes sense. So it's
awesome.
I can't wait to hear it live.
Yeah,
I was kind of thinking to myself today, do you guys, when you're writing and when you're getting ready for a tour, ever have any concerns how to transfer it from that to then a live show, knowing that you can't have 16 musicians up on stage triggering everything?
Well, I mean, the good thing is it is us too. I mean, on the last iteration of the band, where we kind of, you know, had it more as a live band. Yeah. It was a lot harder, because what would end up happening was it would sort of creep away from the vibe of the record a lot more into more of a rock, you know, sort of be a little more rock centric, which, you know, obviously Shaun and I both come from that world, but you know, the idea with this record was to sort of like have those as more as the rock, you know, our rock influences a little more as the undertones of this record. I mean, we didn't want to abandon any, you know, obviously that's, you know, we grew up loving and playing rock music. But I mean, this was, you know, we definitely experimented more in the electronic realm with this record. And so we recorded it that way. There aren't any actual live drums on the record. Everything is programmed. Definitely running through analog gear and things like that. So, you know, but
yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't even until we finished the album, and when I was listening back to that sequence, I started thinking like, wow, there's really not much guitar on this album, you know, like as much as, you know, the last one, but And then, part of me probably thought for a minute, like, oh, maybe I should have added more guitar, on this or something. But then it just, I really only picked up the guitar when it felt like it needed it. I wasn't maybe like, well, I'm a guitar player, so I have to have guitar in every song. It's fun, when we play some of the songs we play live, I don't even play guitar at all. And it's kind of fun in a way. It's different,
I think
I always
less
thought
is more, I believe.
Well, yeah, I always
honestly.
thought too, like, I don't know, I think going into it and like realizing like I wasn't going to play guitar on certain songs, I'm just like, man, I hope I don't look weird up there. Like, I mean, because I always think
you're
of
so
like,
used to it,
I always
I
think
suppose.
of like, I don't know, I always think of like back in the day when like the Rock Band had like a keyboard player, and to me, I just always remember thinking like, that guy looks so awkward, man.
But yeah, I mean, that wasn't none of that stuff that was really preconceived, though. We didn't go into starting like on this iteration of the band, or should I say, like when we first started working on the what would be was it EP1? No, the single release. It started with just Shaun and I in my bedroom and in his studio, just like, and that was what we had in front of us. We had a bunch of synths and keyboards and drum machines, and and we just started working on music like that. So it's sort of, the music started to lean that way a little bit more, but it wasn't something that we decided in the beginning, oh, we're gonna strip it back and do this, whatever. It was just kind of where we were at, so yeah, it was kind of cool. And when we started doing this, and we realized it was just going to be us two, we thought about hiring some other guys and or using some of the guys from the first record, which was definitely hard because we love those guys and we wanted them to be a part of it too. But it was kind of scary and kind of daring too, to like, let's what if we tried just with us two? And Shaun was probably a little more reluctant than me. He was like, dude, I don't know. And I'm like, yo, we can do it. And it wasn't easy. I mean, there's a lot of technology involved. A lot of stuff that Shaun had to, really figure out. But once it kind of started to come together, it was awesome, And now the fact that it's just us two up there, I don't even think about it anymore. It feels
Is it
natural.
slightly more intimidating knowing that you've got to kind of fill the stage a bit more now because there's not another guitarist or a bassist?
Not really. Maybe in the beginning, I kind of,
You've literally got to own the stage. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm here and I need to make sure that I'm getting everyone in the palm of my
I mean,
hand.
I'm even a little spoiled now. Like the other night we played in where were we at in Bristol,
Yeah.
and the stage was really tight up there, and like I didn't it was like, and it was just me. I mean, Shaun is up there too, but he's on a platform kind of above me, and I still have my space. I'm the only one on the front, but it was like too tight for me, and I was like, man. And so like we played London the next night, and I was like liberated, like yes,
stretching out
I
like
was
a bed.
like,
Like,
running
this is
everywhere.
brilliant.
But yeah, I mean, it seems to work in some strange way with just us too. It doesn't, it doesn't feel like there's something missing,
I've got time for one final question, and I ask it to everybody that's ever been on the podcast. And what I try and do to make the podcast as original as I can is every guest that comes on, it doesn't matter who you are, whatever you've done as a job or whatever walk of life you've been on. The last question, I'm putting you both on the spot. You both get to choose any song by any band in the history of music to be played. So after I've edited this all today, Mark, Shaun and Chino, literally you'll both get to choose any song and it's played after the interview with Crosses. So it's Mark and me, Crosses, and then the music will play out. And because there's two of you, I will let you both have a song each.
Because usually we only have.
I usually just do one-on-one, so the guest chooses one song and it plays out. But
I'm sure we can agree on one.
we could do rock paper scissors, or
Yeah.
I'll
Let's
do a
just agree on
sample
one,
of
because I already
one,
know
but-
where we're gonna go with this. I think we know the artist already. We're gonna go, but now it's just about picking the song.
Well, it's weird because I always have this sort of thing. I always ask people. I mean, maybe it's a bit dark, but I always ask people, "What's your The Plane Is Going Down" song?
I ask that all the time. and I think
what's
it's
the
it's a
song?
very valid song. Mine
Plane-
is "Last Goodbye" by Jeff Buckley.
Okay.
I want that to be as I go because it's like "Last Goodbye" and one of the best vocalists of our whole fucking generation.
What would yours
so-
be?
Man, I felt like honestly that almost happened one time. I was on my way to Australia, and we were like, it was rough, and I actually had Uncle Rabbit in Your Headlights was playing on my in my headphones while I thought we were going down.
Wow.
And it's a little breakdown in the song where there's this like little speech, and they're like, if you're ready to die, if you made peace, and blah blah. And I was like, this is too fucking strange right now. This is happening. But if I had to choose, it's a tough one.
What will happen is in about 3 or 4 hours, you'll be like, Mark, come back.
Yeah, right.
I've changed my mind.
Yeah.
Like, can we edit this out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have one off the top of my head, but let's just go with let's go with Prince, because I know that's something we can both agree on right off the jump.
Yeah.
And it's got to be some of our Purple Rain, and so here's where we might. And if it was my choice, I would say The Beautiful Ones.
That would be my choice.
Well, then there you go.
Straight up.
It's natural. Guys, there aren't genuine any words. Emma's pulled me the best favour in the entire lifetime of Now I Owe You. But giving me your time today, and I know, you guys don't do a lot of press. I just want to say how much I appreciate you both coming on the show, how much I've appreciated everything you've done in music, and I really can't fucking wait for tonight, because you guys haven't been here to do this, so it's going to be awesome. So thanks for coming on the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you.
I think it was fun.
So there it is. There's my interview with me, Chino, and Shaun from the absolutely amazing Crosses. I absolutely love the interview. I went into it, I'm not going to even pretend, I was absolutely terrified and nervous, which I don't normally get now on Mark and Me, but it meant so much, and I didn't want to kind of mess it up because I had this one golden ticket. But I'm really happy with the way it came out. I've sat and edited it, and I'm really, really happy. And I know that after the interview, both Chino and Shaun said they had a great time, and, it was a dream come true. So I feel like all the hard work and effort I've been putting in over these years lead to this, and it's so good when it comes out better than you could ever dream of. Now, I've mentioned her at the start, but I can't end this episode without saying again a massive thank you to one of the most incredible, loving, caring, supporting friends I have on the planet, Emma Van Dyke. You are genuinely one of a kind, and making this interview happen, there are no words that I can describe that actually sum up just how grateful I am. But because you were there with me, you were sat on the tour bus, you heard the interview, you spent the day with me, you know how much this means, and I am genuinely forever grateful, and there will be something one day that I can do to kind of pay you back for this, because it really is a dream that I never thought would ever become reality. So I love you, and I owe you so, so much. Also, thanks to Chino and Shaun for trusting in me. You guys do not do any press. It's really hard to find many interviews with you guys, but to know that you accepted this and enjoyed the podcast and came on and gave me your time, I am so, so happy and so grateful. And truly, your show that night was one of the best and will stay with me forever. Also, to you guys at home, thanks for listening. You guys support me. You see the journeys I go on. You will all know, if you've ever met me or you've followed this podcast, how much this interview means to me. So thank you so much for supporting. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, as always, guys, please share it. Go on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I know there's loads of Far fans out there, Deftones fans, Crosses fans. Let's get this out there for people to listen to, because they're very rare to get these interviews, and especially with these guys, let's spread the word. So you can do that by literally going on markandme.com, finding that Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or TikTok link, and just sharing it, because I want so many people to find out about this interview and it be one of my most popular downloaded episodes, because it really would be the icing on the cake of this incredible experience. Also, if you really enjoyed today's episode, I do have a Patreon, and this is basically to support the podcast. It allows me to go out there to gigs like this or festivals, host the podcast on all these different networks and directories, and I can only do that if you support me via Patreon. So there's a link on markandme.com, and in return for signing up and giving me maybe £1 or £2 a month, I guarantee you exclusive episodes called The Lost Tapes, which are just for people on Patreon. No one else gets to listen to those. You get a welcome pack, which includes a really nice little sticker pack, a badge. You also get a monthly newsletter, and so much more. Now, just before I go, I want to give a big shout out to the sponsor of the podcast, Richer Sounds. Without those guys, I couldn't do this. So if you're in the market for a new surround sound system or a Sonos or a TV or a Blu-ray player, hit up richersounds.com or visit any of their high street stores. Now, I'll be back in only a couple of days' time with another brand new episode. So until then, go and listen to Deftones, go and listen to Far, go and buy yourself the Crosses album because you will not regret it, and I'll speak to you all very soon.
Bring to life a vision in one's mind. The beautiful ones always smash the picture. Always, every time. That'd be cool.